Hello, everybody. Welcome back to English Champion. We just had the Oscars this past weekend, and for I don't know how many years in a row now, we have given the top awards to films that are simply not very good, and maybe more importantly, films that no one is going to really remember in the long term. In the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, no one's going to remember these movies. No one's going to care about One Battle After Another. No one's going to care about Anora or The Artist or The Shape of Water or 12 Years a Slave or Moonlight or any of these movies that have won in the last 15 years. No one remembers them. They don't matter. And it's just so different from the films that, dominated the era that I grew up in, which is the 90s, where so many of those movies are still very important and part of the cultural conversation. And when they're on television, people actually stop and watch them. These movies of the last few years, especially those that have won the major awards, they're just not relevant to the culture. And so what I want to do here is go back through this first 25 years of the 21st century. And I want to go through the films that did not win Best Picture. And I want to share what I think are some of the best films of this era. And when I say the word best, for me, films that are truly good quality are ones that not only do I usually want to keep coming back to. Some of these are films that you don't necessarily want to watch all the time because they're heavy subject matter. They're kind of difficult to watch sometimes. But for the most part, these are films that resonate with me because they capture some sort of truth in them. Often they affect me emotionally, where I have a realization, I have an intense feeling about it. And these are ones that make me feel something. I actually care about these people and about this story and what goes on. The films of recent years, I just don't care about them. I don't mean to be too harsh, but One Battle After Another is just simply not a good movie. I feel bad for Paul Thomas Anderson because he's created some true masterpiece films, and this is just not one of them. And yet, this is the movie he got his Best Picture and Best Director for. Sinners, again, not a great movie. It's just not. I'm sorry to put it out there, but this year was just another year of films that they're not going to stand up over time. And for me, almost none of them had any emotional resonance, especially the ones that were nominated in the top categories. The only film for me, I think, this year that I truly walked away from going, wow, that was interesting, and it actually affected the way I view the world, was Train Dreams. That was my pick for probably the best film I saw this year. I really like Song Sung Blue. Excellent performances in that movie. Both of those movies are better than the ones that were up for all the top awards. Train Dreams is the one that if I were to put on this list, going back over the last 25 years, that would be the one I would put for this year. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go year by year, and there are going to be some years that don't have a film on them. All right. That's how few great films there have been over the last 25 years. And I'm doing this I've thought about doing this for a while, especially after several months ago when the New York Times list of top 100 films of the first quarter century came out. The website and podcast The Ringer did a top 25 of the first quarter century. And I tried to do 25 myself. I couldn't do it. There's just too many that I really like. And so I went for 35. These are 35 films. I'm going to try to go quickly through them. And again, these are films that really opened my eyes to things or made me remember a truth about human nature and reality that, is important to know. And these are films that had great emotional impact for me. And I think you'll recognize many of them as we go. Interestingly enough, just back to really quickly before I dive in, the major awards, as I thought back to my favorite top quality films of the last 25 years, only 2 of them, and you'll know them when you hear them, would have actually made this list. 2 of them who had won Best Picture made this list. And so we've had this long run of films, again, last 15 years especially, and even further back, of films that won Best Picture that are not films that are really great films that people are truly going to remember. And many of these, I think, you'll understand why people remember them. Some of these are going to be a bit personal. They are ones that I particularly like, and that people, if you haven't seen them or if you've forgotten about them, you should go back and watch them because they're great. But again, these are all of the best films, in my opinion, that did not win the Best Picture award. And so there's these gems out there that need to be watched, and the Best Picture designation just simply does not mean anything anymore. So let's start at the year 2000. I was in college when this movie came out. Almost Famous is one of my favorite all-time films, and it includes my favorite all-time performance by an actor in the smallest role possible, and that's Philip Seymour Hoffman as Lester Bangs in Almost Famous. It resonates with me because it's a movie about a young person. It's a movie about music. It's a movie about trying to discover what you're good at and what you're supposed to be in this world. It's something everyone can relate to, and that there's, this sort of mysterious, exotic love interest that you immediately have a crush on, and yet you'll never be with her. Just great stuff about teenagers and people trying to do something important in this world. In this case, create music, and all the complications that come from it. And so, Almost Famous, year 2000, definitely on my list of my favorite films of the first quarter century. Also from 2000, Best in Show. I have a couple comedies on this list, and Best in Show is one of them. Waiting for Guffman, which is the film that came before this by the same group of comedic actors, is a funny movie. It's a little too weird for most people, but Best in Show is so grounded and makes you actually believe that the people who engage in dog shows, that they could actually be this quirky and funny. And so even though it's a satire and a farce in a mockumentary way, it's such a funny movie. It makes me laugh every single time. If it's on television, I immediately stop and I watch it. And I think it's the best of all of the films that are created by that group led by Christopher Guest. And so Best in Show from 2000. Next year, 2001, Memento. This movie, in my mind, kind of changed the way films can be told. I mean, the movie is told in three different directions. It makes you confused watching it, and yet it's fascinating to follow. So Memento is a wow movie for me, just like all of these are, in that it really opened my eyes as a person who just got out of college to films that can really break rules and do whatever they want. And if you're smart enough as a writer and as a director, then you can pull it off. And Memento does that. It's a movie that's still referenced today from a writing and directing standpoint. Also from 2001, very serious film, In the Bedroom. I remember seeing this by myself at a theater. Again, my first year out of college, I was thousands of miles from home, and I had nothing to do when I wasn't working 18 hours a day, except go to the movies. And so that's what I did to use my time. And I remember going to this movie and having a visceral reaction in my stomach to how emotional this movie was. It's an absolutely heart-wrenching film about a son who gets killed, and the question of, is there ever a time where revenge could actually be warranted? And it's a great kind of moral dilemma that this family goes through. And it's super intense. It's very quiet and intimate, and yet absolutely nerve-wracking for me anyway. And so that's a movie that still sticks in my brain. I've watched it a number of times, even though it's a tough watch, and very powerful movie. From 2002, one of my favorite films, Adaptation. Again, a wow movie for me because that script is amazing. He should have won Charlie Kaufman should have won the Oscar for his script for that film. I believe Nicolas Cage's best performance he's ever been in. That movie is funny and smart and weird and just very creative. And I actually studied that film when I was in grad school in a class on adaptation, and that was sort of our source that we built off of. And so I love that movie. It's so quirky and funny, and yet really smart about what the adaptive process is for creating art. So smart movie. I love it. I don't have any other sports films on this list, and this film from 2003 is not really my favorite sports film of the last 25 years. The movie I've watched the most, sports movie, is probably Miracle. I love that movie, but this movie is an incredible film because it's got a great historical background, and its development of the characters is better than any other sports-related film I can think of, especially the last 25 years, and that is Seabiscuit, 2003 Seabiscuit. Excellent book as well, so you should not only watch the film, you should read the book, but just a great story of how three broken human beings and a broken horse all come together to achieve great things. And again, great historical backdrop, and excellent acting, excellent writing, and heart-pounding excitement in those horse races. So check out Seabiscuit if you haven't. No films of that I found to be especially powerful for me over the next couple years after that. But in 2006, Children of Men. Children of Men, I think, has a few plot problems. As I'll talk about with some of these going forward, not all of these are perfect films. There are some films here that I really love, yet they have some significant problems with them. Children of Men has a kind of a meandering plot that's a little bit of a kind of an and then this happened, and then this happened. It doesn't have. We know what the main problem of the story is, but I quibble with some of the plot elements. The thing that makes this such a fantastic film are these amazing long takes and this just astounding production design. This world is an apocalyptic landscape, and it totally looks real. It's an amazing production, and that overcomes any plot problems I tend to have with that movie. So a great film, Children of Men, kind of sci-fi apocalyptic film that deserves to be watched. Also from 2006, my only foreign language film on the list is The Lives of Others, and powerful film about Germany and the secret police spying on people, and it's just it's intense, but also very quiet and intimate, and there's a lot of tension in it, and very few films talk about the World War II era in this way, and it's definitely worth a watch. The Lives of Others. It did win the Best Picture for the international films that year, and it's a great movie. 2007. Many consider this to be probably one of the greatest years of film of all time. I would have to agree. Again, even as someone from the 90s, where 1999 is held up as the pinnacle of real film from my generation, for this era, 2007 is probably the best era of film. And so I have several from that year. No Country for Old Men won the Best Picture that year, and it was a worthy winner. That is one of the few that is on this list that I would include as my top films of the last 25 years. Obviously, the film that it competed most intensely with was There Will Be Blood. Amazing film. That's probably the film. Again, I'm fine with the Coen brothers winning that year, but I think we're kind of looking back on There Will Be Blood as the film that probably should have won. It's an epic story. It has probably the greatest acting performance of the last 25 years in it with Daniel Day-Lewis, and it's just such an interesting perspective on the development of America that I think There Will Be Blood is probably Paul Thomas Anderson's masterpiece. Definitely worthy of Best Picture that year, even if it didn't win. Another film that is continues to be remembered in the minds of viewers even today, all these years later, is Zodiac. Incredibly intense, excellent direction, very clever use of following different characters. It ends up being Jake Gyllenhaal's character kind of being the main character, but there are several other people involved that we really want to follow along with and help everybody put this puzzle together about who this serial killer was. And so Zodiac continues to be, I don't know if it's David Fincher's masterpiece, but it is. It's probably not, but it's right up there. It is an excellent, excellent film. Another film that kind of got lost amid the neo-noir westerns of that year of No Country for Old Men and There Will Be Blood is one of my favorite films also from this era is 3:10 to Yuma. Excellent movie, a traditional western. It's a remake, but it's better than the original. And it's kind of a mix between, whenever I watch it, I think this is sort of halfway between Unforgiven and High Noon, because it's about an individual person who decides to take a stand and do the right thing when no one else would, which is kind of like High Noon. But it also has kind of a dark and cynical undertone to it because so much of the story is built on, like Unforgiven, the mythology of the West and the stories people tell. And the character of Ben Wade, Russell Crowe's character, is kind of this larger than life mythical figure, and he's very appealing as a bad guy. And so there's the balance in the film of, well, who should we be rooting for here? The very charismatic bad guy or the gritty good guy who is left all alone here? So 3:10 to Yuma, fantastic Western, deserves to be on anybody's list of great Westerns, especially in recent decades. Also, one more film from 2007 I really love is Once. John Carney, the Irish filmmaker, has kind of started to rebuild the idea of what a musical film is, and Once is just such a beautiful, simple, intimate film. Great songs, great performances by people who aren't normally actors, and it's a movie that touches me every time I see it. So Once is one of those wow movies for me. 2008. In Bruges. In Bruges is a quirky, strange film that takes an old trope, which is, a hitman story. Here's these two hitmen, and what's their next job? And we find out, oh, one of them is about to be the one who's getting the hit. And so it's an old story, but it's done in such a creative way. And the writing is great. It's intense, but also very funny. And Colin Farrell is absolutely brilliant in that movie. In Bruges, one of my favorite films of the last 25 years. Another comedy, Tropic Thunder. I love this movie because of how it skewers Hollywood. It is perhaps the last great comedy, which has some things that are not PC. It challenges political correctness and makes fun of everything. And I just love how it kind of goes overboard, which is fine, but it does so in such a funny and relatable way, because we kind of already know this about Hollywood, and yet this puts it right out in front of us in the most exaggerated way possible. A great satire and great performances by all the key famous actors involved, from Ben Stiller, Robert Downey Jr., and Tom Cruise especially. Very funny movie. On the other end of the spectrum, a very serious movie, the movie Doubt. Philip Seymour Hoffman, Amy Adams, and Meryl Streep. This movie started as a play, and you can tell that this is rooted in a play because it's such a focus on dialogue and character acting that characters are constantly put in enclosed spaces. They're in an office, they're in a room, they're in a hallway, and they're having to kind of go to battle with each other to find out what the truth is about what's going on in the Catholic Church, specifically with this one priest. And so a great film that we end up with a question that never fully gets answered. And the way that the actors and the writer of that film pull it off is really special. And again, not an easy watch. It is because of the subject matter, but brilliant performances. And every time I watch it, I think, wow, the way they're able to balance and try to present explanations for everything that's going on, and how much that continues to frustrate, especially Meryl Streep's character, is just brilliant, and definitely a worthy film. Also from 2008, one of my favorites is The Wrestler. Mickey Rourke should have won the Oscar that year. He lost to Sean Penn. But a great story, and his counterpart in the film, Marissa Tomei, there's sort of a romantic relationship, but really the purpose of her character is to mirror his. And the way that the film presents them constantly kind of reflecting one another and what they're going through, from how their bodies are objectified, how they feel like they don't have any other options, how they rely on the admiration of others in their own unique ways. Just a brilliant story, and it's a touching movie that kind of gets forgotten about because of, Mickey Rourke sometimes has played a variety of sort of strange characters, but this is his best performance, and just an excellently crafted film, also from a directing standpoint. 2010, this year famously, The King's Speech won Best Picture and Best Director. And as almost everyone looks back on it now, everyone realizes that was a mistake. The Social Network is the best film of that year. So even though it did not win, everyone kind of regards that as the best movie. And this is probably David Fincher's ultimate achievement so far. For the biggest reason is, one, it's so well written, it's so well edited and directed. But also its relevance is just so important for our culture, because everything that goes on in that film affects the technology and the social world we have around us today, where everything is done online, and every connection we make and everything we post and every message we send is to try to get attention from other people and to feel like we belong. And we're never quite sure who's being honest with us, though. Everything about that story is completely relevant for our current world, and just a brilliant movie, and probably should have won the Oscar. I actually love The King's Speech. A lot of people rip on that movie and think it's overrated and nowhere near as good as Social Network. I really like The King's Speech. When it's on, I will watch it. I've seen it a bunch of times. However, just from a cultural relevance standpoint, it's just not quite as important in the current culture as The Social Network. From 2011, a movie that is very difficult to watch. However, it is worth it if you go into it with the proper mindset, and that is The Tree of Life. Terrence Malick movies are difficult because they're often very slow. It's very hard to discern what exactly the plot is, and this is no different, but it's brilliantly directed. The camera work is amazing. This is one of Brad Pitt's best performances of his entire career. Um, and again, it's not exactly clear on what the point of all of it is, and yet you walk away feeling like um, there's a sense of hope, that there's a sense of the things that we think are really important in life are really not in the big scheme of things. And so maybe we should, one, not worry about things as much, maybe two, forgive people more than we normally do. Um, there's a definite spiritual quality to this film. And again, it's weird enough that people maybe don't like it, but it is definitely worth watching. And again, not one that you want to click on a Saturday afternoon when you're hanging out, but it's a powerful film. I recommend it highly. The Tree of Life, and I think it's the best Terrence Malick movie of this generation anyway. I really like Thin Red Line from the '90s, but of the ones he's made in the last 25 years, this one is the best one. Also from 2011, Moneyball. Moneyball is not a perfect movie, and it omits a number of things from the original actual historical events. But the reason it's on my list here and why it's such a wow movie is it really brought to consciousness things that are now commonplace, which is that, especially in sports, everything is moneyballed. Everything is done through analytics. Everything is statistical. And the, the, the people who used to hold knowledge have gotten surpassed by a different group of people who have a different form of knowledge now. And that's kind of how everything is run. Every industry now has some sort of moneyball quality to it, where everything is done with analytics and to try and find efficiencies and to maximize opportunities or profitability. And Moneyball does it in the world of sports, and it's very entertaining. Brad Pitt is good in this movie. I don't think he's as great as he is in some other movies, but this is on my list because it became just so prescient for how everything is now. Everything is moneyballed. One more from 2011, the movie Margin Call. I'm going to have a complimentary film to Margin Call here in a second. But Margin Call is a great movie because it's very intense. The character and acting performances are great. And you never quite know what's going on. It's about the financial crisis, but you're never told what exactly is happening. You just know there's a huge catastrophe about to happen. And the way they solve it is, again, also shrouded in a bit of mystery. And the banks get away with it, just like they did in real life. And so this movie, in contrast to the one I'm going to share in a second, gives you almost nothing to go off of. And yet the power of the dialogue and the character performances is enough to keep us absolutely gripped. And Margin Call is a great movie. From 2012, the movie I thought that should have won Best Picture is Zero Dark 30. A bit of a controversial film for some. It shouldn't be. It's a great movie. Amazing action. Catherine Bigelow. I think this is a better movie than The Hurt Locker, which actually did win Best Picture, and she did win Best Director for. It's political. It's got action. It's got intense, research and people doing really smart things. It covers all bases. It's an excellent film, and again, I think it's the film that should have won the Oscar in 2012. 2014. Birdman that year won the Oscar, and that is a film I would include here. I saw that movie in the theater twice. I really loved it. But other great movies from that year, Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler is kind of like the movie Network mixed with Taxi Driver. It's about media and the messages that we show to the public and how we manipulate people into feeling certain things and what the definition of truth and reality is, especially through media. And Jake Gyllenhaal's performance is fantastic. He should have gotten more acclaim for that role that is really, really a powerful piece of acting. So Nightcrawler, great film. The other film from 2014 to make my list is Gone Girl, another David Fincher movie. And again, one of those wow movies that exposes an element of truth about reality in that, yeah, females can be villains too. You know, a lot of movies we have the guys are literally the bad guys. And here we have a story where this woman is awful. Now, her husband is not great either. He makes mistakes, but he is definitely the one being victimized in this movie. And super intense, terrifying for people who are considering getting into relationships, because you're like, holy cow, could my person I'm dating or marrying do something like this to me? It's terrible. So Gone Girl is a great movie. I never read the book. The movie is enough, and great performances, great directing and writing as well, and very scary movie. From 2015, Sicario. Again, a truth that it reveals is that you realize, oh, our own government is probably in collusion with other bad entities out in the world. And the argument could be, well, there's sort of a devil you know quality to it. Like, well, the devil you know is better than the devil you know. So I'm going to team up with this other bad guy to beat guys who are worse. And that's sort of the rationale for the film. But as Emily Blunt's character kind of discovers, like, how do you know what's right and wrong then? How do you know who the good guys are if everyone's willing to break the law, to murder people, to collude with dangerous organizations? That's where she's stuck in this film. I wrote a review of this movie a long time ago, and I think I gave it a B because I thought I wanted more resolution for her character. And the more I've gone back to watch, and again, it's one that if it's on television, I'm watching it. It's so good. The more I've watched it, I think, no, this is the right way to tell that story. It's great. I would revise my grade up to an A at this point. Sicario is one of the best. The other financial film that I was comparing to Margin Call a minute ago is The Big Short. The Big Short has some flaws with it, but it goes the opposite direction of Margin Call. It attempts to explain all of it. And so Margin Call kind of speaks in very vague language and portrays a crisis in this very obfuscated form. Big Short attempts to show this perspective from all angles and have people actually explain it to you on film. And the reason I like it so much is it's so funny, great characters. The politics of it are a bit, and the economics of it are not quite right, but it's entertaining, and I appreciate that it attempted to take something so complicated like the financial crisis and tell a story about it in a way that was understandable but also entertaining. And so The Big Short deserves to be on this list. A tiny film that no one has probably seen but deserves more recognition from 2015 is Z for Zachariah. This is a tiny little movie starring Margot Robbie. And it's another kind of post-apocalyptic scenario here. Everyone has died. She's the last survivor. And so she's surviving on her own out in the wilderness and on her family home. And she encounters another survivor. And so there's this kind of almost Garden of Eden quality to it where it's like, okay, there's only two people. How are they going to rebuild civilization? But then there's a third person who shows up and throws a wrench into their relationship. And so that is all the characters in the whole movie. There's only three people in this film. And so, again, the wow factor for me for this movie is, wow, they told an entire gripping drama with this woman and these two men in this, it's sort of a love triangle, but it's way more than that. And they didn't need any big special effects. They don't need any other actors coming in and doing, flashy things. It's just three people talking together, working together, and there's tons of drama in that. So simple, small movie, but it's a movie I love, Z for Zachariah, and Margot Robbie is great in it. She is not glammed up like she sometimes is in other films. She's completely, she looks like a normal person. She's still very beautiful, of course, but she's just a regular person in this movie, and she is stuck dealing with these two guys that she's unsure of what they're up to sometimes. And how do you try to continue civilization if there's no one else around? So great film, Z for Zachariah. From 2016, the movie Arrival, sci-fi kind of oriented film. Amy Adams is fantastic in it. She should have gotten even more recognition for her performance. Great questions in that movie about what's the role of language, what does it mean when we say things, and what assumptions should we make about people from other cultures? She writes the question on the board, what is your purpose on Earth? And that's really the question for all of us all the time. She has to decide, well, once we figure out how time is represented through language in this film, she has to make the decision, well, even though I know bad things are going to happen in life, what do I do? Well, you still move forward. You still can choose to pursue those things because there's still value in it, even though it might cause you a lot of pain. There is a plot point that I have a real problem with in that film. So it's not a perfect film. but what it attempts to do, I really respect. And again, great performance, some cool sci-fi stuff. And because I'm an English guy, its emphasis on language and how it can shape the world around us. It's not quite accurate. The science isn't quite right about it. But again, I love what it's trying to do, and it's a great film. Also from 2016, Silence, Martin Scorsese film that not many people remember. Just it's not an easy watch, but Andrew Garfield's performance is fantastic. The direction is great. It's a story about Catholic missionaries in Japan and the persecution they face, and the title Silence comes from the idea of, well, what do you do if you pray to God and you don't hear anything? At what point do people lose their faith? And at what point does that silence actually make our faith even stronger? Because that's how, for the characters, that they potentially connect even more strongly with Christ and what he went through. So great film, great just kind of Christian theological ideas in that film, but also just great performances, and a film that doesn't get talked about enough in Martin Scorsese's collection of his directing efforts. Also from 2016, Hidden Figures. I love this movie. Great performances. If it's on, I will stop and watch it. The great truth about that movie is, yeah, when you're really smart, people have to notice you, okay? Smarts wins. And so here the story, we have these women who are facing racism and sexism, and yet they still prevail. Why? Because they're really, really smart and really, really hardworking. And so even though they have everything stacked against them, their ability to just deal with it. Yes, it's unfair. Yes, it was during a time of our culture that was not good. But when you show with your talents and your smarts and your work ethic that you're better than everyone else, yeah, those barriers go down pretty quickly, and they become accepted for how important they are. In this case, to the space mission of the 1950s and 60s. So, Hidden Figures, I love that movie. It's a great one. Also from 2016, Sing Street, another John Carney film, kind of a sequel to Once. This time though with young people, and just a great film. I almost get emotional every single time I watch it because it's about a young kid learning about the world and trying to discover his own voice and how he's going to put something of himself out into the world, in this case through music. And so he forms a band with some buddies, and they start writing their own songs and performing them, and he finds camaraderie and some sense of just belonging with his bandmates. But also it's more for himself, that he figures out, this is how I view the world, and I'm going to go pursue this thing because being creative and putting something of myself out into the world is the best way to be. And so it's a great movie about art and about music, but also about young people discovering who they're supposed to be. So Sing Street, one of my favorites. A couple more. From 2017, Dunkirk. I thought Dunkirk was the best film of that year. I think it's the best war film ever. I do love Saving Private Ryan. I love other war films. But this one is so unique and so interesting. Here's my only Christopher Nolan film on the list. And it's fantastic. The subjective point of view, the broken timeline. Sorry, it's not the only. I had Memento. My apologies. But Dunkirk is a fantastic film. And it makes you think about war differently than every other war movie. And the ultimate message at the end, when the boys make it back home and they're being congratulated and welcomed, and the one soldier says, "We didn't do anything. All we did was survive. We didn't win. We didn't conquer anybody. We didn't defeat the enemy. They're still coming. All we did was escape and survive." And one guy goes, "Yeah, that's sometimes all you need to do. Just, that's the message of war. Really is, just try to be alive, because most war stories are about trying to win and trying to be brave and all this stuff, and an even more truthful story is, yeah, you just do your best to just be alive, because that's what we're all trying to do." So Dunkirk, fantastic film. From 2018, another NASA movie. I really love the movie First Man. It is a movie that I always like when really famous, especially attractive movie stars get lost in a role and you forget that it's them. This is one of those for Ryan Gosling. you forget that it's him. Even he's not wearing any makeup or anything, but he offers such a great performance in that movie that his movie star qualities really fade to the background, and extremely intense, great um, uh, cinematography regarding the space elements of the story, and the title First Man is just so great because it's a reminder when you watch that movie that everything throughout all of human history has required a first man, a first person. It's usually a man, though. All right. And so throughout the film, they're wondering, like, especially, his wife and other people are like, why are we doing this? People are dying. We're trying to send people on rockets and these spaceships. And there's been catastrophes. Our own friends and our colleagues have died in these missions. Why are we continuing to do this? Well, that's how all of life has been. If we're going to make any advancements, there needs to be someone who's super smart and super brave, who's willing to say, I'm willing to go find out what's out there. I'm going to explore this new place. I'm going to solve this problem. And some people don't make it. And so for those who do, they deserve a lot of credit because they're the first, and they put their lives on the line. And so by the end, after Neil Armstrong has made it back, there's the recognition that, like, this could have gone horribly, but thankfully it didn't. And now we've learned something. We've explored a new place, and maybe we can do something with that new information. So First Man is a great movie that kind of got lost in the shuffle over the last few years, but it's fantastic. From 2019, Jojo Rabbit. Again, this movie I think has a plot problem that I really don't like, but it's so incredibly funny. It satirizes the ridiculousness of Nazism and how just stupid and foolish it was, and it just does a great job of utilizing character and voice to poke holes in a philosophy or a worldview, and just to show how absurd it is. So it's just a great satire, and again, by the end, a little bit of a difficult watch, but if you can understand that this movie is making fun of Nazis, you should get on board with it. It's very funny. Also from 2019, my one Tarantino entry for this list, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I have not liked, or I shouldn't say I've not liked. There's a couple I haven't liked. Others I just haven't enjoyed from the past 25 years by Quentin Tarantino. There are many that I watched once and I don't ever need to watch again. But Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is a great film. And it's another one of his revisionist history films. Great performances, especially by, Brad Pitt won the Oscar for it, but DiCaprio's performance is fantastic. And it's actually a very conservative film. It's a film that wants to go back to the days where there were real movie stars, and it was okay for people to be pretty, and it was okay for people to have glamorous lives. And we as viewers who saw them on the big screen liked that relationship. Like, yeah, you rich, beautiful people who are these actors, keep making fun movies, and we'll keep watching them and having fun as we watch you. And it's okay to have that relationship. And we want people to just do fun, cool things. And the bad guys in the film, the Charles Manson clan, and the other kind of weird hippies who attempted to bring it all down, yeah, they're the villains in the film, which is great. And so it's a very traditional movie, actually. And I love that it just applauds movies and movie stars for just being cool. And we like that. We used to like that back in earlier eras. And, people weren't activists and people didn't have political opinions. They just be beautiful, be handsome, be cool on the screen, make stories we like. That's really all we need. Just do that and it'll be great. And we've gotten away from that. And the traditionalists get their victory in the end of that movie. So Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, definitely my favorite Tarantino film of the last quarter century. And the last film on my list, number 35, from 2022, Maverick. I understand this is not a traditional like Oscar level movie. It's an action movie. It's got some romance. It's got some humor. It's just a fun popcorn movie. The reason it's on my list, though, is one, the way it kind of tried to rejuvenate Hollywood after the COVID shutdowns. Two, how it made me feel as I sat in the theater watching and hearing the music come up over the black screen from the original Top Gun, and how just excited I was for that movie. But then also what this movie does better than any other movie is that it takes an old actor and puts him in the proper role. you go from being the hero of an earlier era and you become a teacher in the next era when you're too old to do the stuff from before. Now, Tom Cruise still does the stuff because he's Tom Cruise. But in other films where the characters kind of age out of their previous hero roles, this is how you do it. You have them become a teacher who can still do some stuff, but you have them guide the next crop of people who are going to follow in his footsteps or her footsteps. And so this is where Top Gun Maverick did right what all the Indiana Jones movies did wrong. The ones after Last Crusade, where as Harrison Ford started aging, the movies kept getting weirder. Like, no, go back to the formula. Go back to what we like. Just have Harrison Ford now be a teacher for a new archaeologist who also goes on these adventures with him. That's how you save this franchise. Well, Maverick did that. It's brilliant. Tom Cruise is still super cool, but he also gets into trouble and had to train the younger guys to come do the right thing and be competent and demonstrate their skills and be heroic by the end as well. So this movie's on the list because, one, it's just such an exhilarating movie. Again, it's not a perfect movie. I have some other problems with that film. There's some parts of that movie I actually fast forward through, but the way that Tom Cruise and the producers and director of that film crafted the former hero becomes a teacher for new heroes kind of plot arc is great. And this is the model all action movies should follow. Maverick's done it the best. So those are 35 films of the first quarter century, or the last quarter century here, that none of them won Best Picture, yet these are all movies that are worthy of first-time viewing and repeat viewing. And almost all of these, if they're on a Sunday afternoon and I'm just scrolling through channels, if I see one of these, I will watch. Not all of them. Some of these are a little heavy, but all of these are films I've seen at least twice, and have a strong kind of emotional and intellectual relationship with these movies. And again, they didn't have to be best picture winners. So we just had this week Best Picture winner, and then the other film that was in competition with it that just wasn't a good film. Last year's award winner, Anora, is one of the worst films I've ever seen in my whole life. I cannot believe that movie won Best Picture. It's truly an awful film. And so this is what we have. We've had an entire, again, 15 years or so of films where these movies are winning that they're just not that good. And so here are movies that are way better. Some of them are popcorn movies. Some of them are very intense movies. But, even if they didn't win Best Picture, these are great, great films. So hopefully that gives you a little something to think about other than the catastrophe from the Oscars yet again this year. As someone who, as a longtime English professor, I've taught film many times over the years in my literature courses. And so, I have movies all around me. I love film. And to see so many bad movies continue to get this critical acclaim is just so weird and disheartening. Because again, as someone who grew up in the 90s and saw so many fantastic films that are still relevant today, it seems we're getting fewer and fewer of those. But here are just a few for you to go back through the first 25 years of this century and take another look at. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. See you next time.